Have you ever wondered why a giant monster like the T-Rex dinosaur, with a huge body, sharp teeth, and extremely strong bite, has tiny hands that look like two decorative pieces? Is that a design flaw of nature, or do those hands actually have some secret that we have yet to discover? Welcome to the channel, 100,000 Why Questions, where we explore together the strangest and most fascinating things in the natural world, science, and the universe. If you are as curious and love to learn as I am, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any interesting stories. Tyrannosaurus rex, or T-Rex, is known as the king of dinosaurs because of its size and overwhelming strength. They lived in the late Cretaceous period about 68 to 66 million years ago and were one of the most notorious predatory dinosaurs that ever existed. An adult T-Rex could be up to 12-14 meters long, about 4 meters tall at the hip, and weigh from 5 to 9 tons. In particular, this species possessed extremely powerful jaws with teeth up to 30 centimeters long, enough to penetrate the thick bones of its prey. It is estimated that the bite force of T-Rex could be up to 30,000 to 50,000 newtons, many times stronger than today's crocodiles. However, what makes scientists and the public curious is T-Rex's forearms. Compared to its massive body, its arms were extremely small, only about 80 to 100 centimeters long, equivalent to the size of an adult. These arms only had 2 fingers with curved claws, which did not seem to match the giant stature and strength of this apex predator. Even when compared to other carnivorous dinosaurs, such as Allosaurus or Spinosaurus, which had quite long and flexible arms, the mini arms of T-Rex became even more out of place. This has raised a big question for paleontologists. Why did an ultimate predator like T-Rex possess a body part that looked like it had evolutionary errors? And were those arms really useless, or did they have some hidden function that has not been discovered? Looking at the unusually small arms of the T-Rex, many people would think that this dinosaur had such arms from the beginning. But in fact, the ancestors of the T-Rex had long and quite flexible arms. According to paleontological studies, the predecessors of the T-Rex belonging to the Tyrannosauroidea family used to have much smaller bodies, small heads, and relatively longer arms. One of the most important pieces of evidence is the Guanlong fossil discovered in China in 2006. This is one of the ancient ancestors of the T-Rex, living about 160 million years ago, at the end of the Jurassic period. Guanlong was only about 3 meters long, but had long arms and a rather small head, a sharp contrast to the giant T-Rex descendants that came after. Over tens of millions of years, species in the Tyrannosauroidea family gradually evolved in a special direction. The head became larger and stronger, while the arms gradually became shorter. An intermediate species, Raptorex, which lived in the early Cretaceous, showed clear signs of this process. Although still relatively small, Raptorex's head had already become larger than its ancestors, and its arms had shortened considerably. This suggests that the shortening of the arms in T-Rex was not a sudden mutation but the result of a long-term evolutionary trend. This change may have been related to a shift in hunting strategy. Instead of using its arms to attack like many other dinosaurs, T-Rex's ancestors began to rely more on the strength of their heads and jaws. As their heads grew larger and more powerful, the role of their forelimbs gradually became less important, leading to their increasingly smaller size over generations. This is evidence that T-Rex's short arms were not a random or natural defect, but the result of a directed evolutionary process that suited a new, more efficient hunting lifestyle. One of the big questions that scientists have asked is, if arms no longer play a major role in hunting, why didn't evolution eliminate them, and why didn't T-Rex's arms stay the same size as many other bipedal dinosaurs, but instead continued to shorten over time? The answer may lie in an evolutionary mechanism to optimize body balance, a vital factor for a multi-ton predator like T-Rex. T-Rex was a biped like humans. However, its weight and body proportions were completely different. While humans use their arms to balance when running or walking, T-Rex had a long and extremely strong tail which helped it balance the mass of its front part, especially its large and heavy head. With a skull that was more than 1.5 meters long and a large mass concentrated forward, T-Rex needed a way to keep its center of gravity from shifting. If its arms had remained as long as its ancestors, the mass in the front would have increased, unbalancing the entire body, making it difficult to move and even causing it to fall when accelerating or turning suddenly. According to Professor Thomas Holtz of the University of Maryland, a dinosaur expert, if the T-Rex's arms had been larger, this would not only have caused imbalance, but could also have reduced its hunting efficiency. Imagine an animal weighing up to 8 tons running fast on 2 legs, having to carry large arms in front. It would be like a truck with 2 large arms attached to the front of the vehicle, cumbersome and dangerous. The gradually smaller arms not only help reduce the weight of the front part, but also make the body structure more compact, easily adapted to a hunting strategy based on speed, surprise, and strong bite force. Another interesting point is if the arms were really a hindrance or useless, why didn't evolution eliminate them completely, as it did in some snakes? This is what has puzzled paleontologists. The T-Rex's arms were small but not completely useless. The bone and muscle structure in the shoulder and arm areas suggests that they were still capable of movement, at least in certain situations. Therefore, the hypothesis that these arms gradually became smaller to avoid hindrance, rather than being completely disabled, is one of the most reasonable approaches today. In other words, the T-Rex's arms were not forgotten or completely useless by evolution, but were limited so as not to affect the vital functions of more important parts, especially the head, legs, and tail, the parts that played a key role in hunting, moving, and maintaining balance. This is a classic example of natural selection. What is no longer useful is reduced to a minimum but not completely eliminated unless absolutely necessary. Although T-Rex's hands were oddly small compared to the enormous size of its body, that doesn't mean they were completely useless. In fact, for over a century, paleontologists have proposed many theories to solve the mystery what were T-Rex's hands used for. While none of these theories have been officially accepted, each is based on scientific evidence and rigorous biological analysis. The oldest theory dates back to 1906, when paleontologist Henry Fairfield Osborn proposed that T-Rex's hands may have been used during mating, specifically to hold or stimulate a mate. The sharp-clawed structure, along with a certain mobility, may have helped male T-Rexes cling to females during mating, similar to the behavior of some modern reptiles. However, since there is no specific fossil evidence of this behavior, the hypothesis remains at the level of reasonable speculation. Another hypothesis was put forward in the 1970s by researchers at the Natural History Museum in London, suggesting that T-Rex's hands could help support and lift its body when falling. With a body weighing several tons, falling could be extremely dangerous. Therefore, the hands, although small, could still act as a kickstand when T-Rex needed to pull itself up. However, the structure of the wrist and the limited range of motion have made many modern researchers doubt the practicality of this function. In the early 2000s, Dr. Kenneth Carpenter took a new step forward by studying the muscle traces on the T-Rex's arm bones. The results showed that the muscle groups were still relatively well developed, proving that their hands could lift objects weighing up to nearly 200 kilos, not a small number. Based on biological analysis, Carpenter hypothesized that T-Rex could use its hands to hold its prey in close combat situations, increasing its ability to control and prevent the prey from escaping. This hypothesis has received much attention because it is closely linked to the species' fierce hunting lifestyle. In 2017, Professor Stephen Stanley from the University of Hawaii also proposed a unique idea. T-Rex's hands could help injure prey at close range, especially when the prey was controlled by its mouth or fell down. With long and curved claws, T-Rex's hands could slash strongly from above in a short distance, similar to the pounce of a bird of prey. However, the limitation is that the arms are too short to reach far, so if they do not approach close enough, this function is difficult to perform. In addition, some more modern hypotheses also suggest that T-Rex's hands may have a role in social behavior or bringing food towards the mouth. For example, Professor Matthew Bonin from Stockton University, USA, suggests that T-Rex could rotate its arms near its head to hold a piece of meat or tear off difficult-to-handle food, similar to the behavior of many birds of prey today. However, to confirm these hypotheses, more specific fossil evidence is needed. Although there is no final conclusion at present, the persistence of those small arms over millions of years of evolution suggests that they are not necessarily useless but may still perform small but essential roles in certain survival situations. Although many scientific theories have been proposed to explain the function of T-Rex's short arms, none have been considered official or accepted by the entire scientific community. The main reason is that there is not enough specific fossil evidence to prove any function of these small arms. Scratch marks on prey bones, fossil postures that suggest mating behavior, or signs of how the arms were used, all remain missing pieces of the T-Rex's overall picture. For example, to prove that T-Rex's arms were used to scratch or attack prey, scientists would need to find claw marks on the fossilized bones of other dinosaurs, something that has not yet been discovered. Similarly, the mating hypothesis is also difficult because there is no evidence of clear differences between male and female T-Rex arms or any characteristic behaviors preserved in the fossils. Computer models and biomechanical analysis, while useful, are no substitute for direct fossil evidence. Some paleontologists have therefore proposed an alternative view that these short arms are simply a byproduct of evolution and do not necessarily serve a specific function. In evolutionary biology, there are features of the body that shrink or disappear over time because they are no longer needed, but do not disappear completely without obvious disadvantages. Typical examples are the pelvis in whales or the hind limbs in some snakes. These structures persist even though they are no longer useful. Applying this view to the case of T-Rex, we can see that when the head becomes extremely large and plays a major role in hunting, while the tail takes on the task of balance, the arms are no longer an important factor. With no natural selection pressure to retain or develop these body parts, they gradually became smaller over time. But since they were harmless, evolution had no reason to eliminate them entirely. And the strange hands continued to exist. From this perspective, the T-Rex's hands are like a biological vestige, a reminder of a time when their ancestors used them as effective hunting tools. The hands, though small, became a special symbol, making the T-Rex easily recognizable and always intriguing to modern viewers. It is this contradiction, a powerful dinosaur with a seemingly useless body part, that has made the T-Rex a subject of research for more than 100 years. It is not only a pop culture icon, but also a door that opens a series of questions about evolution, biological function, and how nature adjusts organisms over time. Until a fossil with clear evidence is found, the question, what were T-Rex hands used for, will remain an interesting scientific mystery. But that is what makes this topic always attractive, challenging, and constantly inspiring for those who are passionate about discovery. What do you think? Do T-Rex arms really have any use, or are they just a vestige of evolution? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe to Cosmic Y, and turn on the notification bell to discover more amazing things in the natural world.